All right, what's going on, everybody? This your girl Tiffany coming through live in effect. May peace and power, elevation be to all of you. So today's topic we're going to be dealing with Roy Wilkins, right? Who was a former civil right and also a NAACP secretary and also a politician. So we're going to be talking about his history. But before we go there, I want to deal with a quote for today from Inyasasim, which is written by Baba Baruti himself. So let's go ahead and get into the quote. And the quote is: the real servant of the people must live among them, think with them, feel for them, and die for them. And he used a quote from Carl G. Woodson. Now, this is what he stated in his book. Arrogance is a quality found in those who believe they are naturally superior to others. In the mind of the arrogant, they have no equal. There may be individuals who can better them when they happen to not be at their best. But their paranoia and egotism lead them to feel that they have no true rivals. Arrogance is an attitude taken by individuals and people who rise as the result of belittling and destroying others and define effect of that lesson and negation of those others as the greatest evidence of their superiority. It is a bully mentality. Arrogance is a highly offensive vice. So, not being arrogant should be an integral part of the character of African warriors. Humility is expressed first towards one's own people and then to others as they earn it is the warrior's way. However, recognize that this is not traditional African society and the tenets of that time and place do not unqualifiedly apply within this cultural context. The measure of the quality of an African's character cannot be of how altruistically one treats a stranger, but of how well one treats those among his or her own people who deserve this heightened level of respect. In this anti-African, highly disrespectful, preparatory, prey cultural context, humility for strangers must come only as they earn it. Affirm, I am a real servant of the people. So that's the quote for today in this book. That's a pretty powerful quote because at the end of the day, you're serving your own people and you should be able to be amongst your own kind. So, in order to like serve the needs and the wants and be able to have a connection and better understanding. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the subject matter of today. Who is Roy Wilkins? Well, let me show you who Roy Wilkins is. Okay. So that's Mr. Roy Wilkins. That's him again. That's him. All right, that's him talking with Sammy Davis Jr. and a reporter. Okay. So, who is Roy Wilkins? Well, let's look up his story. Let's find out. So, Roy Otway Wilkins was a prominent activist in the civil rights movement in the United States from the 1930s to the 1970s. Wilkins' most notable role was his leadership in the in the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, in which he held the title of Executive Secretary from 1955 to 1963 and Executive Director from 1964 to 1977. Wilkins was a central figure in many notable marches of the civil rights movement. He made valuable contribution in the world of African American literature, and his voice was used to further the efforts in the fight for equality. Wilkins' pursuit of social justice also touched the lives of veterans and active service members through his awards and recognition of exemplary military personnel. All right. So let's look at his early life. So Wilkins was born in St. Louis, Missouri on August 30th, which is the same birthday we share. On August 30th, 1901, his father was not present for his birth, having fled the town in fear of being lynched after he refused demands to step away and yield the sidewalk to a white man. When he was 4 years old, his mother died from tuberculosis, and Wilkins and his siblings were then raised by an aunt and uncle in the Randall neighborhood of St. Paul, Minnesota, where they attended local schools. His nephew was Roger Wilkins. Wilkins graduated from the University of Minnesota with a degree in sociology in 1923. All right. It says in 1929, he married social worker Amida Minnie Bado. The couple had no children of their own, but they raised the two children of Hazel Wilkins Cotton, a writer from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Okay. So far, that's his early life. So his father was not present in his life because he fled town because he was worried about being lynched. And his mother died when he was very young from tuberculosis. And so tuberculosis was very common in that time era. That was the most common disease. It was the most common disease that killed African Americans. So yeah, tuberculosis was something very serious at that time. And you gotta remember, this is a time where there was blacks who could not afford proper health care, and men then was left to die, and men then was left to suffer. All right. So let's look at the early career. Right down here, it says, while attending college, Wilkins worked as a journalist at the Minnesota Daily and became editor of the Appeal, an African American newspaper. After he graduated, he became the editor of The Call in 1923. His confrontation of the Jim Crow laws led to his activist work, and in 1931, he moved to New York City as the assistant NAACP secretary under Walter Francis White. When W.E.B. Du Bois left the organization in 1934, Wilkins replaced him as the editor of The Crisis, the official magazine of the NAACP, from 1949 to 1950. Wilkins chaired the National Emergency Civil Rights Mobilization, which comprised more than 100 local and national groups. Okay. He served as an advisor to the War Department during the World War II. In 1950, Wilkins, along with A. Philip Randolph, founder of the Brotherhood of Sleeping Cars Porters, and Arnold Arison, a leader of the National Jewish Community Relation Advisory Council, founded the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights, has become the premier civil rights coalition, and has coordinated the national legislative campaign on behalf of every major civil rights law since 1957. All right. So now, many people argue about there was a lot of folks who was integrationists, and not only they was integrationists, but also they suck up to the white man or whatever. Okay. So let's just put it like this. Let's understand the game of survival. You trying to survive in the country, right? And you are considered as the minority, okay? And you have the majority of the dominant group. What are you going to do in order to survive as a race? Now, we got to understand, eventually, you're going to have to assimilate, right? Or you're going to have to integrate into the culture to get the resources that you want. Because remember, you're playing somebody else's game. You're playing by somebody else's rule. You don't have your own government. You don't have your own county. You don't have your own state. So you have to do whatever is necessary for you to be able to obtain some type of power and have some type of resource. So you have to remember, during those time periods, our ancestors thought that if they was to integrate or to assimilate into this culture or with whites particularly, that they will get what they need and they will earn those resources. You have to understand that. That's what our people did. They did that because, excuse me, I got some inside my mouth. But anyway, they did that because they were trying to survive. It wasn't about, I want to be like the white man, or I love the white man. But how do I survive in America? I gotta make sure my family is taken care of. I gotta make sure that I have some form of generational wealth. And people did all they could to get what they wanted. Now, a lot of it didn't work for us because, as you can see, we still at the bottom, right? As you can see, we still dealing with the oppression. It didn't change much, but that's how they thought back then. So that's why groups like NAACP was formed, SCLC, SNCC, all these organizations, they were formed, and CORE, they were all formed to combat racism and be able to bring opportunity for Africans Americans so they would have a chance to be able to survive and be able to have the resources that is necessary and get involved in political arenas. So that's why they was forming these organizations, to gain access and have opportunity for the Black community. But anyways, let me go ahead and finish. Okay, so let's look at the NAACP leadership, all right? In 1955, Wilkins was chosen to be the executive secretary of the NAACP, and in 1964, he became the executive director. He had developed an excellent reputation as an articulated spokesperson for the civil rights movement. One of his first actions was to provide support to civil rights activists in Mississippi who were being subjected to a credit squeeze by members of the White Citizen Council. Okay, Wilkins backed a proposal suggested by the T.R.M. Howard of Mount Bow, Mississippi, who headed the Regional Council of Negro Leadership, a leading civil rights organization in the state. Under the plan, Black businesses and voluntary associations shift their accounts to the Black-owned Tri-State Bank of Memphis, Tennessee. By the end of 1955, about $300,000 had been deposited in the Tri-State for that purpose. The money enabled Tri-State to extend loans to credit-worthy Blacks who were denied loans by white banks. Wilkins participated in the March on Washington, which was in August of 1963, which he had helped organize. The march was dedicated to the idea of protesting through acts of nonviolence, in which Wilkins was a firm believer. Wilkins also participated in the Selma to Montgomery marches in 1965 and the March Against Fear in 1966. Okay? So, and then it goes down to say he believed in achieving reform by legislative means, testified before many congressional hearings, and conferred with Presidents Kennedy, Johnson, Nixon, Ford, and Carter. Those achievements gained Wilkins' attention from government officials and other established politicians, earning him respect as well as the nickname Mr. Civil Rights. Wilkins strongly opposed militancy in the movement for civil rights as represented by the Black Power movement because of his support for nonviolence. He was a strong critic of racism in any form, regardless of its creed, color, or political motivation, and he also declared that violence and racial separation of Blacks and whites were not the answer. As late of 1962, Wilkins criticized the direct action methods of the Freedom Riders, but changed his stance after the Birmingham campaign and was arrested for leading a picketing protest in 1963. All right, so we all have our differences, right? We all have our views about nonviolence and violence. Some people thought that nonviolence was was more useful when it came down to protesting. But at the end of the day, it led to violence because the people were being attacked, they were being brutalized, they were being beaten badly. It led to violence. Then there were some who were very radical and who felt that violence was necessary to defend themselves. But either way it go, whether it was violence or nonviolence, you still dealt with the force, excessive force at the end of the day. Okay, so let's go on down. It says on the issue of segregation as well, he was a prominent systematic integration instead of radical desegregation. In a 1964 interview, Robert Penn Warren for the book Who Speaks for the Negro, he declared, "We Negroes want the improvements in the public school system, and among them, of course, the elimination of segregation based upon race, the institution of the same quality education in the schools attended by our children as those attended by other children. And we want Negro teachers, and we want Negro supervisors, and we want all the opportunity. But the only way our form of government and our structure of society can survive is by some common indoctrination of our citizenry, and we have found this in the public school system. And for any reformer, black or white, zealot or not, to come along and say I'll destroy it if it doesn't do like I want it to do is very dangerous business as far as I'm concerned." Now, however, his moderate views increasingly brought him into conflict with younger, more militant black activists who saw him as an Uncle Tom. Wilkins was also a member of Omega Psi Phi, a fraternity and with a civil rights focus, and one of the intercollegiate Greek letter fraternities established for African Americans. Again, that's him with Sammy Davis Jr. All right. So let's see what else. Oops. Okay, let's see what else we can find about Mr. Roy Wilkins. Okay, so let's look down at his views real quick. All right, now these are his views. He was a staunch liberal, a prominent of American values during the Cold War. He denounced suspect and actual communists within the civil rights movement. He had been criticized by some of the left of the movement, such as Daisy Bates, Paul Robeson, W.E.B. Du Bois, Robert F. Williams, and Fred Shuttleworth, for his cautious approach, suspicion of grassroots organization, and conciliatory attitude towards white anti-communism. Okay, and in 1951, J. Edgar Hoover and the United States Department, in collusion with the NAACP and Wilkins, who was then the editor of the Crisis, the official magazine of NAACP, arranged for a ghost rent leaflet to be printed and distributed in Africa. The purpose of the leaflet was to spread negative press and views about the black political radical and entertainer Paul Robeson throughout Africa. Roger P. Ross, a State Department public affairs officer working in Africa, issued 3 pages of detailed guidelines, include the following instruction: United States Information and Educational Exchange in the Gold Coast, and I suspect everywhere else in Africa, badly needs a thorough-going, sympathetic, and regretful but straight-talking treatment of the whole Robeson episode. There's no way the communists score on us more easily and more effectively out here than the U.S. Negro problem in general. And on the Robeson case in particular, and answering the latter, we go a long way towards answering the former. So the finished article published by NAACP was called Paul Robeson, Lost Shepherd, a pen under the false name of Robert Allen, who the NAACP claimed was a well-known New York journalist. Another article by Roy Wilkins, Stalin's Greatest Defeat, denounced Robeson and the Communist Party United States in terms consistent with the FBI's information. So the way that Roy Wilkins wanted to denounce communism was by dissing Paul Robeson. So him and Paul Robeson had some back and forth with each other, apparently. So with that being the case, because they were going back and forth with each other, he tried to dismiss this man and tried to assassinate this man's character. And that's what happened when you have oppositions, right? They're going to try to do whatever they can to denounce you or to assassinate your character. Okay. Because it's either because they want to earn more power and ego, or because it's the way to make you feel guilty and shameful about yourself. And so that's what usually happens. And especially when it comes to the political arena, that's the case. They tear each other down, or they try to assassinate each other character just to earn more power and more respect. All right. So let's check this out. At the time of Robeson's wildly misquoted declaration at the Paris Peace Conference that blacks would not support the United States in a war against the Soviet Union because of the continued lynching and their legal second-class citizen status after World War II, Wilkins stated that regardless of the number of lynching that then occurred or would occur, black Americans will always serve in the armed forces. Wilkins also threatened to cancel a charter of the NAACP youth group in 1952 if it did not cancel its planned Robeson concert. Wow. So, support for military. During the presidency of Kennedy and Johnson, the civil rights movement was in its peak. International affairs were somewhat overlooked by numerous members of the NAACP and other civil rights groups in order to focus on domestic issues in the United States. However, Wilkins stayed true to his liberal values and carried them to the White House during this time with the NAACP. Wilkins' friendship and constant correspondence with Johnson gave him an even larger platform to speak out on war efforts and policies affecting civil rights. His views towards the participation of black military members in the United States military was a point of contention between him and other prominent civil rights leaders. While most civil rights groups and activists stayed quiet or spoke out against the Vietnam War, Wilkins focused on what African Americans could gain out of serving in the military. An article posted in the Western Journal of Black Studies suggests that black troops were fighting for equality both in the United States as well as overseas. Wilkins emphasized the financial benefits of serving in the military, along with the importance of African American citizens participating in the first integrated American Army. Wilkins' effort to further equality in the realm of international affairs were publicly recognized in 1969 when he was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by Lyndon Johnson. All right. Okay, so Roy Wilkins had died on this day on September the 8th of 1981. He died of a kidney failure. So let's see. There's more information if you want to check it out. You can see the reference right here. All right, that's more information. So, what's my thought on Roy Wilkins? So it seemed like to me that he was on he started to be on the radical side when it came for black people, but then he eventually switched up and started to be more like I don't even know how to call it a liberal. I mean, he said he was a liberal, but it was like he was really against his own people at the same time. And some of the people that was in the civil rights movement and also in NAACP, they felt some kind of way about him because they felt like he wasn't really representing the Black community, especially when it came down to when most Blacks spoke out against the Vietnam War, and they didn't think that Black folks should serve in that war, right? Well, Roy Wilkins said, well, you got to look at the flip side to it. There's benefits behind it. I mean, if you serve in this war, you get your benefits and you would get all the resources that you need. So, and then he befriended with Lyndon B. Johnson, the same president who kicked out Eartha Kitt because she asked a question regarding to the Vietnam War. So, yeah, it's no different. It's no different than what Candace Owens is doing with the Republican Party, right? That's what Roy Wilkins was doing with the Democratic Party. So what I'm telling you is, why everybody's on the bandwagon about being a Republican or Democratic, it's no different, okay? There's crooks on both sides. There's crooks on both sides of the party, whether they be Democratic or whether they be Republican. So just like you got racist Republicans, you got racist Democrats. And I can give you a prime example of who's the racist Democrat is. Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton. Joe Biden is a serious racist Democrat. He let it be known. He let it be known where he stand on. But see, people don't want to see that. People want to see that because he's a Democrat. That's because of his party and what he represents, but they don't understand that he's racist. And Kamala Harris ain't always for you either. And she got some things on her record. She's known for locking up a lot of Black folks. Now, let's not forget Joe Biden and Bill Clinton both signed a mass incarceration bill in 1994. So people are so hooked on him, like, oh, he's our hope because we don't want Trump in the office because Trump is bad. And I'm not taking up for Trump. But guess what? Joe Biden ain't that good either. Joe Biden ain't your friend. Joe Biden ain't really down for the cause. He just wants your vote so he can get in office. So either way it goes, you still dealing with crooks on both sides. And so Roy Wilkins is doing what Candace Owens was doing. Except that Roy Wilkins is dealing with the Democrats. Or was dealing with the Democrats. Whereas Candace Owens is dealing with the Republicans. It's no different. You got the Uncle Toms on both, not Uncle Toms. You got the House Negroes on both sides. You got the House Negroes in the Democratic Party, and you got the House Negroes in the Republican Party. It is what it is. All right, so let's look up more information. Okay, so here's an article by Oxford Journal, Oxford University. Okay, it's called "The Role of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People in the Desegregation Process." Roy Wilkins, April 1955. This is when the article was written. Okay, so this is the article that Roy Wilkins had wrote back in 1955. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read some of this, the first two paragraphs. And if you want to check it out, you can do it on your own terms. So it says the role of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People in the Desegregation Process. Roy Wilkins. It says, because the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People played a major role in the legal action which resulted in the Supreme Court decision of May 17, 1954, it is natural that estimates of its continuing activity would place major emphasis on lawsuit. This is doubly logical in view of the fact that its attorney now are armed with an actual opinion on the unconstitutionality of racially segregated schools rather than the mere belief in that unconstitutionality and the hope of such a pronouncement. But popular opinion to the contrary, the NAACP would prefer using legal action as a last resort in the many situations which will arise in hundreds of communities. The basic question has been solved. Racially segregated schools are unconstitutional. The complexities ahead involve compliance. How shall the court's opinion be implemented? The approach of and program of the NAACP to implementation has already taken shape, influenced in part by the traditional policy of the Association for First-Class Citizenship Free of Discrimination and Segregation, and by events immediately before and since May 17th. All right. So that's the first paragraph of that article. Again, if you want to check it out, you can go on Oxford University Press or jester.com. Jester.org. And the source is called Social Problem, April 1955, Volume 2, Number 4, Desegregation in Public Schools, Roy Wilkins. All right, so that's that. Again, I'm going to go back to what I was saying in the beginning, and I'm going to end it with the conclusion. So, a lot of people created organization, right? Some of them created organization that was based on radical principles, based on self-defense for the community, and some created political organization that was based on bringing some type of reform to laws and policies that would be beneficial to the Black community. So our people had different ways of serving and doing things that were that was gearing towards the African American community. However, many of them could not agree and be on the same page. See, where we messed up as a people, we did not create our own political party and stuck to it. Now, there was a political party called the Black Panthers, not the Black Panther social movement, but it was a political party called the Black Panther. But they didn't last very long. Okay. They I think they started in Mississippi. I have to look, as a matter of fact, let me look that up. Hold on. Give me one moment. Okay. Anyways, so yeah, that was some information about a political party called the Black Panther Party, right? And they weren't like really dealing with radicalism or doing self-defense. It was just more so like a political group. So again, as I was stating before, where we mess up as Black people, we should have stuck to having our own political parties. You know what I'm saying? And have our own representation. Instead of trying to be a Democrat or be a Republican or whatever. We should have stuck with just being independent. You know what I'm saying? Because as an independent party, you don't have to pick what size you want to be on. You can just look at the political views and political agendas, etc. So we really have that, and we had a stronger group of Black folks that was into those type of parties, right? Into the independent party. I think that we would get somewhere. But what we did was we denounced and disowned our political groups just so we can join those who are Democrats or those who are Republican. And then what you have is a serious opposition with one another. And like nobody can coexist and be on a common ground. So in my opinion, I think that there should be some form of there should be a room, right, where all the Black people, those who are Democrats, those who are Republican, they should be able to be in the room together and be able to talk amongst themselves and be able to figure out what's the better solution for the Black community and be on the same page. Just us and not the outside interference. That's just my opinion. That's my opinion. That we should be able to have a session where it's just Black people from each party sitting down, talking amongst themselves, and coming up with common grounds and solutions when it comes to the nature of the Black community. Because to be honest, I don't think the Republican Party is beneficial. Neither do I think the Democratic Party is very beneficial for Black folks. I don't think either party are. Because at the end of the day, they're not really caring a whole lot to our needs in our neighborhoods. Because so no matter what president that you have in the office, the condition is going to pretty much remain the same. It's not going to really change anything. It's not going to change the poverty that's going on. It's not going to change the unemployment. It's not going to change none of that. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to change a whole lot. So it don't matter who you put in office. And that's the way I see it. But I do understand why a lot of our ancestors did what they did. A lot of our elders did it because they felt like they had no choice but to. And they felt like these things were the only way to get the attention of the government and to bring some type of sort of help for our people and bring some type of political education for our folks. So, and I get that, but then at the same time, we look at it over the years and over the decade, it didn't really do much. They just gave into the emotions of African Americans. They didn't really, this government hasn't really helped us a whole lot. What they gave us is some crumbs, basically. And when I say crumbs, like government assistance, housing programs, food stamps. So that's why I call it the government crumbs. That's all we got. We didn't really get no reparation. We didn't get no 40 acres in the mule. We didn't get none of that. We didn't get no generational wealth. So anyways, that's all for today. And I want to thank you guys for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure you subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, and share this channel. If you are watching from Facebook, go ahead and share the video on Facebook. And with that being said, I will reconnect with you guys later. Take it easy on yourself. May peace and power elevation be to all of you. Thank you for tuning in. For those of you that were watching. And I will reconnect with y'all again. All right. Excuse me. Okay. All right, excuse me. All right, so take it easy. All right, take it easy, you guys. I'll talk to y'all later. Deuces. All right. Thanks.